member for Wright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Services. Will the minister advise the House how the government is supporting families that want to have a go through measures announced in this budget?
I call the Honourable the Minister for Social Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Wright for his question. And he will be pleased to know, as will the electors of Wright, that the budget is giving choices to families who choose and need to work in this country. That's what the budget is doing. We're doing that through our $3.5 billion Jobs for Families package, which includes the childcare safety net, which ensures that vulnerable and disadvantaged families all around the country will have access to childcare support and won't be neglected or ignored as a result of previous failures of policy in this area, Madam Speaker. He'll be pleased to know about the universal access funding for preschool that was cut by those opposite when they were in government in the forward estimates, and we restored and put $843 million in this budget to support those families. He'll be particularly pleased to know about the youth allowance changes, Madam Speaker, abolishing the family assets test and the family assets actual means test, and the changes to the treatment of the family pool, which will affect 30,000 rural families in this country, Madam Speaker, and supporting their choices where their children are going into education. And, Madam Speaker, though, if you respect the taxpayer, you really have to know how to pay for your policies. And I note that the Shadow Minister agrees with that, because she was asked by David Spears, and she said this. She said, we can certainly understand that for many families childcare is very expensive. And David Spears said, well, that's got to be paid for somehow. And she said, well, it does have to be paid for somehow. Somehow? Somehow? How? How do you plan to propose for it? How do you plan to pay for this? And we have a plan to pay for it, and it's a plan that those opposite oppose, and that is through changes to family tax benefits and, Madam Speaker, through those measures. But as the Prime Minister has already said, when those opposite were in government, they put through this parliament $15 billion worth of cuts to family tax benefits. $15 billion. And they have to hide to come in here and make criticisms of the savings, which will actually give choices to families who want to be in work and stay in work. But the most galling of them, Madam Speaker, is the issue of changes they made to parenting payments. The changes to parenting payments, where they said when someone's child turns 6, they should go off the parenting payment and go on to the New Start allowance, Madam Speaker. And this is what the Leader of the Opposition said about that measure. He said these reforms will result in fairer and consistent treatment of income recipients. So they rip $700 million in parenting payments from those who have their children turning 6, and then they come here and lecture us about savings that are actually going to help more children be in childcare and their families to be in work. Madam Speaker, you've got to know how to pay for your policies. You can't go out announcing policies that you can't pay for. The Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, is a budget smuggler. That's what he is. He thinks he can announce policies and not have to pay for them. Well, you can't pay for welfare with magic welfare dust that you just sprinkle around the country, Madam Speaker. It's a fraud.